This is part 1 of 4 on the monetary system of the United States of America. Rather, the Council of Foreign Affairs and Trilateral Commissions. If you have not listened to that video, I urge you to do so. Operation Paperclip is in with President Harry S. Truman and German scientists and so-called Nazi ''S. Which, if you didn't know better, so-called Nazi science division had long been infiltrated by the Jews and taken over right under Adolf Hitler's nose. That is how the Jews plunged the world into war. That is how dissension tore apart Germany. Most of this is run by the Trilateral Commission from 1972 to 1973 onward. Prior to that, the Council on Foreign Relationship had control and done as they saw fit behind the scenes in the shadows. Here is an editorial about the monetary system run by this nation, or so it would seem, the Jewish people, Federal Reserve Central Bank previous to that. Also, what is not mentioned in the video, the Council on Foreign Affairs and Trilateral Commission, which are covered in other links. Harry Truman years later said he didn't hesitate to join Paperclip. However, was hesitant about involving Russia. So that means our entire Cold War was a farce. Everything has been a farce and everyone has been pawns in a Jewish game for their supremacy. The monetary system, you supply them with money, they steal you blind taxes and more. You work like dogs, they make you sick, they kill your family, and they own you and your family as slaves. The Joint Intelligence Objectives Agency, JOIA, was directly responsible for Operation Paperclip. Most were the so-called Nazi Party, which Jews had infiltrated from 1945 to 1959. Main objective of the Operation Paperclip was the U.S. military advantage of the U.S. Russo-Cold War space race. The Soviets were much more aggressive in the space race, using at gunpoint in one night, holding 2,000 Germans in one night, calling it Operation Azoaviakum. This was supposed to, according to the Joint Chiefs of Staff, aid and post was researched. Yet they didn't go on to say research into what. There is Project Safe Haven and Project Overcast to take people into custody after the war, yet they call Jews taken into custody a Holocaust. Guess what goes unsaid isn't important at all. What the people don't know won't hurt them. Ronald Reagan said about the monetary system being a perpetual debt machine. Guess this applies to non-Jews being captured for other reasons not classified a Holocaust as well. Their current budget is a whopping $18.4 billion, and has grown to nearly $20 billion. The USA always runs to the aid of the Jewish people in Israel and give them $5 billion a year for absolutely nothing in return, but they keep their hand out and now blame our president, as of 2017 to 2018, for having an opinion. The Trilateral Commission and Council on Foreign Affairs is in bed with Israel. This is not counting the funding to countless other nations around the world, and it comes from the Jewish people who infiltrated this nation. And of course Winston Churchill, of whom you'll read about later in the monetary portion. He has a movie out as of 2018, and a section that won't be in that movie is below. You will be interested in his evil deeds. Don't stop researching, because what you don't know can hurt you. Their goal has always been to destroy and undermine white people. From biblical times through the slave trade, which Jewish people profited from, you'll read about below, up until now. It is getting worse. As of this day, January 8, 2018 or around this date, Facebook in all the free speech era is blocking what they deem hate speech. So-called conspiracy theorists and so forth. Angela Merkel of Germany has a new German law named the Netzwerkdurchsuchungsgesetz, NetzDG. It came into effect January 1, 2018 after passing the end of June 2017, quoted as being a so-called Nazi type of anti-free speech thing but targeted at anti-Semitist, which so-called Nazis didn't like Jews, so that proves quite the opposite. She threatened to sue YouTube, Google and Facebook if they did not comply. Well, since all major businesses are Jew-owned, of course they complied, and any nation with free speech such as the USA. Well, Social IST media seems to trump that as they block you with no way to undo their iron fist rulings. Their way no highway option Jewish rules but blame white people. Therefore I must insert a movie analogy which explains this nearly perfectly. Let's set the record straight using a very special movie. Superman 2. Follow me. Superman stepped into the chamber to give up his powers to save his love. Except the lights went off outside the chamber, not inside. When he stepped out, General Zod and the others lost their powers. While Superman kept his safe in his cell. The Jews, safe in their self-imposed Holocaust, were safe and now own the world, while everyone else lost their powers in war while they, the Jews, won the planet. Just like a typical wife nagging to her husband, they never give up, they always have to keep their servants in line too, so they whip them, while claiming to love them. None are so hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe 1749–1832. Only 3% of money is in real form, the other 97% is all digital. The way it works, government calls Federal Reserve, says example they want 10 billion, government makes 10 billion in bonds, which is debt, and trades it to the reserve for $10 billion out of thin air. So basically every dollar created is debt. Plus more debt, say they made or borrowed, if you like the term 10 billion. 1 billion is the required reserve requirement on transactions, 10%, and the other 90%, or in this example is 9 billion, is excessive loan. Then instead of logic saying the 9 billion is out of the original 10 billion, with anyone would assume. Nope, the 9 billion, or 90%, is created out of thin air, and that is how money is expanded as well as our debt. Then out of that system, using the 10 billion example above, loans can be taken out of the 9 billion exceeding reserve, or 90%, then 8.1 billion is available, subtracting that 10%. And in this example it works out using math, as 90 billion can be created from the original 10 billion. To make it easier for you to understand, for every dollar that is printed, created 9 times that can be created from thin air. Imagine the disastrous consequences, or not, you can see them in this world. So basically every dollar we spend takes away from the value of said dollar. Supply and demand grow and it causes prices rise, diminishing the purchasing power of every dollar, which they call inflation. Inflation essentially is a fibbing tax on the people. So everyone's obsession with more money is killing them and taking more money away from them, yet most people don't see it or understand it. $10 billion money. $10 billion, bonds, trade for money, actually pieces of paper. $1 billion is required reserve requirement on transactions, or 10%. $9 billion, or the other 90%, is excessive loan. The 9 billion as above is created again out of thin air, and the system begins again. $900,000, or 10%, is required reserve on transaction. $8.1 billion is excessive loan, and so on. The gist of this is, out of the original 10 billion wanted, 90 billion is created. So by wanting 10 billion, the government just added 90 billion to the national debt. Ron Paul argued how to fight inflation from created money without devaluing the money. It cannot be done. The more people in the workforce causes more problems. That is why we are inviting illegals in this country, why people have to work all the time. Sports athletes, celebrities making millions are killing us all. See above example. Say 40 million for a movie actor, use a calculator, it will equal $360 million that we all pay the price for. Another example, $1 in 1913 took $21.67 to match volume in 2007. That is a terrible travesty. Take the average salary of an NBA player, of a good player, $23,500,000, as of January 2018, a year takes. Look at how much debt that causes this nation, the inflation, Multiply that by 9 and you see how much they alone are hurting the USA and world. All for bouncing a ball and putting it in a hoop. Then look at the millions who bet millions on all sports, how much the poor and middle class get hurt from inflation from rich ass wives. Other sports athletes / so-called celebrities current and from the past, names such as Jimmy Johnson, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Justin Verlander, Adrian Gonzalez, Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Peyton Manning, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Miranda Lambert, Taylor Swift, Blake Shelton, Luke Bryan, Vince McMahon, Seth Rollins, Metallica, the list goes on and on. For entertaining they are ruining the world. The catch-22 is none of them probably know this either. The ones who do or should: Obama, Sharpton, Holder, Lynch, Reagan, past, all past government people, Oprah Winfrey, Donald Trump, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, Mark Cuban, Mark Zuckerberg, Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan. Last two are retired but on part of sports teams, so still contribute to the problem, and many million more. Plus foreigners coming, taking our money and leaving with it. Shania Twain comes to mind, being very greedy. All names as of 2016. The influx of illegals, and as of 2016 Mexican legal and illegals bragging of sending up to $20 million back home to Mexico each year. That is $180 million we pay in debt, and we don't even get the good out of the first $20 million. So all the entertainers are destroying our nation and by extension the world.